Right, we're still in the pulse of everything that's currently happening now at Nasrec. SABC News senior political reporter Samgele Masego is in conversation with ANC KwaZulu-Natal chairperson Siboniso Duma. Now, yesterday, the ANC president Cyril Ramaphosa was disrupted by some delegates from KZN who broke out in songs that were pro his predecessor Jacob Zuma. For more on this, let's take you now to Samgele. Samgele, very good morning to you. So, we believe you are now standing by with ANC KwaZulu-Natal chairperson Siboniso Duma. What's the latest coming out from Nasrec this morning?
Well, Olisi, as you saw yesterday with those visuals of elements of disruption from pockets of delegates from KwaZulu-Natal, the provincial chairperson Siboniso Duma and also the provincial secretary Begum Dolo were at pains trying to calm the delegates down from disrupting the political report of the president. At some point, Siboniso Duma went to one delegate and says, why do you want to collapse a conference that we are winning? End of quote. Mr. Duma, just that emphasis of you trying to calm down the delegates, what was the main thrust of the delegates disrupting the political overview report, similar to the disruptions that took place at your provincial conference when the president arrived?
Good morning, Samgelo, to yourself and your viewers. I think we must just outline that usually there are pre-registration that usually take place in the provinces. It didn't happen this time. It's something that is odd because you can't be expecting almost 4,500 delegates to come and register, which is why the registration has delayed. KwaZulu-Natal, with the biggest delegation, has been prejudiced in many scenarios. Even today, we still have 20 delegates that have not been registered, even the leadership. The reason of the chaos, amongst other things, the trust is the PEC was not inside when the delegates had to wait inside because they didn't have the tags. So I think the issue of registration was clumsy a bit. It should have been handled better. So those are the issues, but the manifestation of what is happening on the ground in terms of unemployment, in terms of ESCOM, I think it is the reality of this current NEC, the term that has ended yesterday. It was not the strongest NEC. So we have not managed some of the issues. We couldn't even have the halfway station, the NGC. So this leadership was elected in 2017, only met the delegate only this year. So the issue of back to basics was never handled properly. So those were the issues.
So at this point in time, Mr. Duma, your delegates have not, 20 of them have not yet registered, which means registration has not yet completed.
I hope by the time we start the plenary, it would have been done because the credentials committee are dealing with all the cleansing processes. I think it will be okay. So that is why we couldn't start on time. That is why yesterday we had to adjourn. So the issue of registration is something that is the fundamental tool, whether the conference must proceed or not proceed. So we are going to follow that process.
Moving on to other issues, Mr. Duma, the disruptions at plenary, the arrival of former President Jacob Zuma when the president was already speaking. How are you as KZN managing the tensions that are seemingly palpable between the incumbent and the predecessor?
I think the history of the ANC, usually after the conference, those who have emerged has enrolled or had more power to ensure that extend the olive branch towards those who have not emerged. The issue of victors and vanquished is what we have seen. I think this NEC was factional, how it was driven. I think that has been sustained. It was never addressed. So unfortunately in the conference, it is the only way where 90% of the delegates want to advance what has been happening. And you cannot just mechanize the processes. I hope it is not going to derail us because we want to achieve the economic outlook. We've been saying that in 94 we won political outlook. Economic outlook was never there. This conference must be fixated in how are we going to change people's lives.
But how are you going to be fixated on how you change people's lives when you are fixated on your own inward-looking political dynamics in the party?
Yeah, that's a reality. That is why I'm saying that these delegates today, as amongst other things that they want to achieve, is ensuring that go to deeper details on documents, on resolution, the implementation, because people on the ground are not just going to be eating the slogans, are not going to be eating our divisions as the movement. People want more change, and people are expecting us that at the end of this conference, whether it's the 20th or the 21st, we must have attained that these delegates will be driven towards that part, and we will be championing that process.
When conference plenary adjourned yesterday, you asked your delegates to stay behind. You were addressing them with the provincial secretary. What was the main thrust of asking the delegates to stay behind? What were you discussing, particularly after you were seen as a province as disrupting plenary?
I think it's critical that the issue of leading the delegation like KwaZulu-Natal, because of its size, you must always manage that you don't advance your sheer arrogance in terms of size, because the conference is about numbers, but conference must also achieve another stuff. So we have to tell them that, comrade, this is the conference that you've been waiting for. This is conference that is going to decide and dismantle the issue of ready-made machinery, the white monopoly capital. So if you are disconnected, if you are disoriented, if you are disorganized, we are not going to achieve those things. So we have to tell them that, please behave. The conference is here in the plenary. Raise your hands. Advance whatever you want to advance in a correct cultural practice of the ANC, which has been there forever.
In closing, Mr. Duma, the Provincial Secretary of the Eastern Cape says yourself and them are in discussions on the outlook of this conference, which may emanate in a consensus around leadership. Is there any credence to those discussions?
I must also issue a stern warning amongst ourselves as colleagues, chairs and secretary of the provinces. When we are given this platform as the media as well, let us also make sure that we maintain the peace and the hegemony of the ANC. I heard the provincial chairperson of Northern Cape saying that there was a turn-off from KwaZulu-Natal. Comrade Zweli is not going to be voted. He has not been following the process in terms of... You can't just articulate something like that, because automatically it says that KZN must be targeted. KZN must be given a raw deal. So I think we are talking with comrades, and it's a nature of the ANC that lobby and advocate for what you believe in up until the queue is finished, the voting has been done. That's where you stop the issue of being lobbying and lobbied as well. So we are going to do that. We are talking with comrades, and it should be in a comrade and camaraderie spirit.
How far are those discussions with the Eastern Cape?
The discussion will proceed. Whether they are genuine or not, we'll see when we have to reach the consensus. Ours is clear. Are they willing to support our candidates? Because we are there and the processes have started. So you might find that if they are not genuine, we proceed, because already there is a consultation of our side. So we are there.
Do you feel as if there is a clubbing up or some sort of lineage that is being done by some provinces to try and isolate KwaZulu-Natal?
Even if it means that they want to try, the reality are on the ground already. The comrades that we supported have already got the numbers. The reality, those who are with us are solid on the base. I think they will see. So there is no possibility at this point in time. We need each other. We want to amend the process and the outlook of being inward looking. We want to achieve the victory on the 2024 election. So whoever wants to win the election must be able to be amenable, must be able to be reaching consensus, must be thinking in terms of the service delivery and the entire outlook of the society, because we are the leader of the society.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siboniso Duma. That is the provincial chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, saying discussions are ongoing, but they are not willing to move on their positions if others are not also willing to concede on certain aspects of the outlook of the leadership come the end of this conference.
All right, Sam, as you continue to keep an eye on what's happening there, I think at the back of what Mr. Duma has just said right now, when we look at some of the conversations and we look at some of the happenings from yesterday through to today, there has been conversations around unity of the party. There has been conversations about rebuilding the party. When you're looking at things right now and how things are happening basically there right now, do you think that this drives that unity agenda that has been top of the agenda all along for the ruling party?
Leaders of the governing party speak about unity, but they then walk left and don't practice what they preach. The issue of unity is ultimately one of the issues that they never truly fulfill, because unity to some ANC leaders is unity on their own lens and on their own perspectives, and they don't encompass opposing or condescending views within the party. So unity is a very complex issue within the governing party. In the words of former ANC President Thabo Mbeki, he says unity cannot be at all costs, and those are some of the issues that are permeated by some ANC leaders as well, saying that you cannot unite with criminals and crooks who are plundering the resources of the state.
Indeed, and you're making a very important point there, Sam. And we look at the happenings of the week when we saw the voting there in Parliament as well. What is this telling us about the ruling party, particularly at this point where we are right now? Looking at some of the way that some of the members of Parliament of the ANC voted there, does this say that or point to that the battle lines are drawn going into conference?
battle lines have always been drawn heading towards this conference. Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma laid down her cards on the table and said that she wants the top prize. Dr. Zwelini Mkhize has been all out campaigning. Lindiwe Sisulu has been on an onslaught against the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. So the cards were pretty much on the table. People have, and ANC leaders whom are opposed to the government have been playing open cards on what they want to transpire at this 55th National Conference. So it was no surprise seeing Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma voting for the adoption of the Section 89 report. Lindiwe Sisulu walking out and saying that she was on a call or sending a text. Dr. Zwelini Mkhize being not present in Parliament during the vote, and also Msebenzi Zwane voting in favor of the adoption of the report. Supra Muhammapilo said it tells you that you've got deeper rooted divisions within the governing party that emanate heading towards the 54th National Conference in 2017 and ultimately coming to this 55th National Conference with those divisions having never healed, or those divisions having never eradicated from the broader politic of the ANC.
Right, Samgele Masego is SABC News' senior political reporter out there in Nazareth, keeping a close eye on things for us this morning. He was in conversation with KZN chair Siboniso Duma there on some of the happenings of the conference thus far. Of course, just making sense of some of the conversations that we've seen coming out of there, credentials, registration, as well as some of the delays as well that